We're here today with Jill Briscoe, executive editor of Just Between Us magazine, author, speaker, and we're going to be talking about prayer that works. It seems like sometimes one of the hindrances to prayer is sort of thinking you have to have this extended long time in prayer, and so people today, women in particular, are so busy. Can you talk about the idea in Thessalonians of what it is and means to pray without ceasing?
Well, if we could just take it out of the word prayer and talk about communication in a relationship, because that's what it is. It's the speaking part of our relationship with God. So let's find an example. If you're married, would you talk to each other once a day? But if you just talk once or twice or just snippets, that's fine. You keep in touch. But if you do not sit down for extended times of communication, your marriage won't grow. And it's as simple as that.
What has been probably, I'm sure there's many things through the last many years, but what is one thing that stands out that you've learned personally about prayer that has really revolutionized your prayer life through the years?
That you can say anything you want. Because, again, keep in mind this relationship. If I have a solid relationship with my husband, I can say anything I want. I can vent. I can say, I'm sorry. I can tell him things that I don't really want to tell him if my relationship is strong enough. And so it really comes down to how strong and mature and grown up your relationship with God is, how well your prayer life will do.
Well, and I think we see that exemplified in the Psalms when David is so brutally honest with God. How might some women who are really starting out in their prayer life maybe use the Psalms to develop their prayer life?
The Psalms are good. I don't start people off there, because you come to a psalm that's calling down fire and brimstone on some poor unfortunate person, and people are saying, "Oh,
although that might be relevant some days."
That might be how you feel, but you know,
yeah.
You might
as
have
a pattern of prayer, you may not want to start there.
When C.S. Lewis, the famous author, came to faith, he had a huge problem with the Psalms. In fact, he's got a little booklet on we call them deprecatory psalms, where David and others are screaming, God, destroy them, you know. And it was a real stumbling block to him. And he's written a little book. I would recommend you get that on the difficulties in psalms and praying the psalms, because there are. So I usually start people off with Paul's prayers in the epistles. And I say, if you do nothing else but borrow his words, that's a great place to start. And, of course, then go to what Jesus prayed in public, what he said out loud. In fact, when he was standing outside Lazarus' tomb, he prayed to God, and he said, I'm not praying to you, Father. I know you always hear me. I'm praying this for the sake of those that are listening. And so he was praying an incredible prayer, Lazarus come forth. He was raising the dead, but he wanted people to hear how he addressed his Father, that he did address his Father, what he asked his Father, what he said about the Father, and how he prayed. And the girl that led me to the Lord, actually, that's how she taught me to pray. When I said the first time, I don't know what to say to God, it was the day after I was saved. She said, now, have you prayed to him today? Have you talked to him? And I said, I don't know what to say to him. And she said, shut your eyes and listen to me. It was a defining moment for me. So I shut my eyes and she prayed. And then she opened her eyes and said, now you do it. And I thought of what Paul said, look at me and live like me. Or it wasn't arrogant. It was shut your eyes and listen to me. Right. And we can do that for other people.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jill, especially in these times. Prayer that works is so important, and I know that you've encouraged our listeners today.
Thank you, Shelley.